The latest nerfs and buffs definitely did shake the meta quite a bit, and it is looking quite different from what it used to before them. In this video I will show you what are the best Hearthstone decks right now, and for the best 5 I'll show you their mulligans, win rates, as well as some general tips. But we will also check on all of the other working archetypes for each individual class, so you know what to be playing with and also know what you're playing against. If you're serious about Hearthstone, drop a like and subscribe to the channel, and I will keep on giving you top 5 meta reports like this, as well as detailed guides about each of those decks. And also don't forget you can hire me for some Hearthstone coaching. Now, let's check out the decks.
You are not prepared!
The first deck on the list has to be the new Spell DH, which has been really taking the meta by storm in top 1000 and is totally warping the meta around it there. Right now, everybody is either playing Spell DH or trying to counter it right there, and the deck is far from simple to pilot optimally, but once you get the hang of it, it's actually pretty fun. I did just give you a detailed guide about this deck, so you might want to check it out if you want to know in detail what you want to be doing with it, but in general, with this deck your two main game plans would be to either do a ton of damage with Lady Steno plus all of your cheap spells, or when the opponent plays a big minion, double slap it with Sinful Brand and start poking it with all of your good rusher dudes with Felderay Warband, as well as the new card Security. We also have Glaivatar, which gives you tons of card draw because you do run quite a few outcast cards, and we are obviously running the Soul Stealer Sai, in which we are putting Felorant so you can curve out faster, Lady Steno since she is a main game plan for you, and also the 3-mana Silvermoon Arcanist so you can actually heal back to full with the help of your Unleash Fel, I-Beam, and also it does give you an extra bit of chunk damage because Mark of Scorn starts dealing 5 damage that way. For the matchups, here's what the stats show, and Tony Druid would be a problematic matchup, and also Blood Death Knight, and also the new Rift Warrior, which you do actually see some of in top 1000. But all around, as you can see, if you know what to do with the deck, you should be fine. For the mulligan, when going first and second, you always want to be keeping your Glaivatar. Spectral Sight, especially into an outcast position, is an excellent keep. Mark of Scorn is not bad. Depending on the matchup, you might consider keeping an outcast I-Beam as well. Illidari Study helps. And if you're against a fast aggro matchup, you might want to even keep Unleash Fel so you use it early as board clear. Security can also be not bad tempo. And if you have Security, you might even consider Feast of Souls for tons of card draw. Taste of Chaos is also not a horrible keep, honestly. When on the coin, however, here's what the stats show, and again, Glaivatar is great, I-Beam if outcasted, Unleash Fel against particular matchups could be great, as you can see you don't always keep it, Taste of Chaos still fine, and Security and Eldari as well, Mark of Scorn still fine, and still I'd say Spectral if outcasted would be a good keep. Another really good Demon Hunter deck right now would be the Big Demon Hunter as well, which is gonna be on the number 2 spot here. I've given you a good guide about this one as well, so again, if you want details, check that one out. But basically, the main game plan with this deck is you're basically doing the same things like with the Spell DH in your first few turns, just trying to survive and not fall on the board too far behind. Around turn 3 you play Abyssal Depths, which should be drawing you your Enforcer, and with the help of it, you could pull out your Fellscale Evoker much faster, so you can actually start tethering out big demons like that, which you could afterwards revive with your All Fel Breaks Loose. Raging Fel Screamer also helps you cheat out demons a lot faster, including the Fellscale Evoker, which is a demon/Naga. And also notice this is summoning a different demon from your deck, so you don't have to worry about this summoning the second copy of the Evoker. For the matchups from Diamond to Legend, here's what the stats show. And you don't really have very bad matchups, but if you curve out horribly, you're gonna have a bad time. Spell DH is somewhat a problem, and also Thaddeus Warlock seems to be your worst matchup, but you don't really see too many of those, so who cares anyway. And from the popular matchups, Undead Priest might be somewhat bad, and Unholy is a 50-50. For the mulligan, going first and second, Fellscale Evoker is always gonna be a keep. If you don't already have that, you might keep Crush Claw Enforcer instead. Zillag I wouldn't really be keeping unless I already have something like, let's say, 4-mana Raging Fel Screamer, which is also a great keep. Abyssal Depths makes the cut, Spectral Sight if outcasted, Illidari is still fine, Felorant can feel great. And Taste of Chaos is also not bad either. And when on the coin, it's pretty similar, but even things like I-Beam become a lot more keepable. Raging Fel Screamer becomes even better. Evoker is still great, Enforcer as well, but don't keep both. Illidari is fine, and Taste of Chaos still. Zillag, again, it's not something you always keep, but if the hand warrants it, it might be good. For other good Demon Hunter decks, we also have Outcast Demon Hunter having crazy good results even in top 1000 Legend, but it is again Not a very easy deck to pilot well, so keep that in mind. The rest is basically iterations of those 3 decks, but we also have Relic Demon Hunter in here as well, which is basically a 4th really good archetype for the class right now, so a Demon Hunter is definitely having a very good time right now. And you could be climbing the easy legend with all 4 archetypes, no questions asked. On the number 3 spot, we have Shadow Priest, which has been an excellent deck even before the new expansion came out, and the rotation didn't kill it. It did make it a bit weaker, but so did the rest of the classes, so it's still a very solid deck. We're no longer running the heavy free drop lists, but instead we're a lot faster with smaller dudes, and you're basically curving out like a god, tempoing out tons of stats, reviving them with the help of High Cultist, which is definitely a card you cannot replace without dropping the win rate significantly. And yeah, you basically chip damage turn after turn, and you finish them off from hand with Rotting Necromancers, Shadow Words on Death, and so on and so forth. Again, check out my guide about it. Matchup wise, here's what the stats show, and the bad matchups would be Spell DH and Outcast DH, but also Mech Pally could be somewhat problematic, Totem Shaman is close to a 50-50, and everything else is very green, so no wonder everybody's playing this. For the mulligan, here's what it looks like going first, and like I said, you basically want to be curving out. If you already have 1-drops, the Cathedral is also pretty good keep. Undying Allies is something you would probably not want to be keeping going first too often unless you already have a pretty good hand for it. But High Cultist definitely could make the cut. But again, try to be somewhat curving into it. And when going second, it's pretty much the same, but here you definitely do keep Undying Allies because you can combo it at least with a couple of minions early on. High Cultist still pretty great, but don't get baited into keeping free drops unless you're perfectly curving into them. For other good priest decks, we even have Control Priest on the lists nowadays, and it is actually doing even good in top 1000, but all around, that's your 2 choices. It's either Control Thief or Undead Shadow. On the number 4 spot, we do have Unholy Death Knight, which is actually doing pretty well even in top 1000 Legends, and it does look like it's at the top of the list from Diamond to Legend as well. This is the variant with the Murlocs which I showed you earlier, so again, I do have a guide about it if you want it. But yeah, you curve out pretty well with this one, you make sticky boards that the opponent is not supposed to be able to trade, and you finish them off with Grave Strength, and if that's not enough, we have Lord Marigar at the end to take the cake. Matchup wise, everything is basically green, except for Blood Death Knight, which is your only true counter, and even things like Control Priest are a 50-50, so climbing should not be an issue. For the mulligan, going first and second, Battlefiend Necromancer is always gonna be great, Murmy is a pretty good keep, Amalgam is also fine, but try to already have a 1-drop I guess. I wouldn't really be keeping Grave Strength ever, honestly. Lord Marigar, if you already have a good 1 and 2 drop, sure you might consider it, but normally you want your good 1-drops and your Hawkstrider Rancher plus Battlefiend Necromancer. If your curve is good, you could even consider Nerubian Vizier. Why the hell is Arms Dealer not even at the top of this keep list? Like, that's so odd. Definitely should be a good keep, but the rest probably not so much. And when on the coin, it's pretty similar, but here even Plague Strike makes a lot of sense. I wouldn't really be keeping Murlocula too often, if ever, honestly. Vizier is still fine. Astlor I wouldn't really keep. Marigar, again, if you have a good curve going. These stats look kind of weird, honestly. Like, what is up with that? Definitely check out my guide for a detailed mulligan guide. And for other good Death Knights, we still obviously have Blood Death Knight doing crazy good, and also Frost Death Knight is still an excellent deck, and it is actually my go-to deck when coaching to Legend, because it's just so damn reliable if you really know what you're doing with it. But yeah, these are the 3 lists right now for Death Knight, so take your pick. And on the last spot, we have Pure Pally still being an excellent choice. And this is actually a pretty interesting list, with quite a few chunky cards, which haven't really been a part of the list for quite a while. We basically have the typical skeleton of a Pure Pally, but we also have things like Anachronos, which is a dragon that gets pulled from Purator, and we also have Leviathan, which is a mech, and also a couple of the Garden's Grace, which can beat tons of damage out of nowhere. You're still basically curving out pretty well with your early game, but you also have quite a lot of mid-game and late-game up your sleeve as well, and a lot of opponents actually don't expect it. We have a Mugborn Servant in here so you can discover some stuff, and only a single copy of Funkfin, which can be pretty strong too. Matchup-wise, not that much stats for this particular list, but Frost Death Knight is not gonna be your friend. Everything else looks pretty winnable though, from the popular ones. For the mulligan, going first and second, Boogie Down is always gonna be an excellent keep. Sinful Sous Chef or your Sanguine Soldier can be great. Mugborn Servant is also nice. The Purator makes a lot of sense as well as the weapon. Hand of a Doll if you already have a good 1-drop, but the rest, you gotta have a good reason to think about him. And when on the coin, again, the situation looks similar, but even Blood Matriarch becomes a bit more keepable here, because you could tempo her out on turn 2 and still coin out a 1-drop to go with her, but the rest is pretty much the same. For other good paladin decks, we have several iterations of the pure pally list, including faster lists that are not running all of the chunky cards. But we also have mech paladin, with a very small sample size still, but decent results nonetheless. There are other more populated lists with more mech pallies. And at the bottom of the barrel, we can also see Dancing Paladin, which does feel good when it pops, but it usually doesn't, so stay away from that one. For the classes we didn't mention today, starting off with Druid, we have Tony Druid still being an excellent choice, even though it's definitely not an easy deck to play well with. And here Tony is actually into the ETC, so if you're wondering where it is, that's where it goes. We also have Death Rattle Druids with Ozumat at the end. And there's even a heavier Death Rattle list, which is looking all around very interesting, but the win rate is not as amazing as the others. So you gotta basically choose out of these 3 archetypes, cause the rest are very, very lower. With Hunter, Face Hunter is probably the way to go, but there is also a Hybrid Hunter above 50%, so if you insist on playing that, that also works. And even Shock Spitter is still above 50, but not by much. For Mage, Burn Mage would be your best bet. Mech Mage is also playable, and there's even this Casino Spooky Mage that's also doing somewhat alright, but it's a bit too janky for my liking. For Rogues, we have Miracle Rogue at the top, and you can see quite a few of those in top 1000 Legend because people there actually know how to play them. There's also this Dagger Weapon Rogue that's also doing quite okay-ish, but definitely nothing that amazing compared to the other lists we've been seeing. And Secret Rogue is also above 50%, but not by much. There's also this weird Menagerie Rogue, but all around, lists are hovering around 50%, so the class is definitely not as amazing as it used to be. For Shaman, we have Totem Shaman at the top, and that's literally the only thing popular enough for you to actually see it. So yeah, if you want to be playing Shaman, Totem is probably the way to go. With Warlocks, sadly Fatigue Imp Warlock did not pick up as much as I'd hope it would, so it's barely 52%, nothing too amazing. Curse Imp Warlock is barely above 50 as well, and Thaddeus can definitely high roll a lot, but it's far from consistent. And for Warrior, after it received so many frickin' buffs, it's still barely playable, sitting at 50% or a lot less. So still pretty bad stuff for Warrior. So that's gonna be it for this top 5, guys. Hope this helps you figure out what you want to be playing in the new Hearthstone season. If you enjoyed the video, drop a like and subscribe to the channel. And don't forget you can hire me for some Hearthstone coaching. Thanks for watching. I'm Kris05, and I'll see you in my next video or stream.